Now, Brent crude hit $76 a barrel on Thursday on prospects of strengthening demand. Oil prices are increasing even as OPEC and its allies consider boosting output over the next few months. Now, back in May 2020, the 24-nation group known as OPEC Plus agreed to make historic output cuts of almost 10 million barrels per day. It slashed production as the coronavirus pandemic wiped out demand. The curbs were tapered to 8 million barrels per day in the last quarter of 2020. Those cuts now stand at about 5.8 million barrels per day after the oil cartel began to further ease output curbs in response to the reopening of economies. In April, OPEC agreed to return 2.1 million barrels of oil per day to the market by the end of July. The rollout of vaccination in more countries and the resumption of international travel is expected to give OPEC Plus a push to further increase oil production from August to December. Now let's bring in Ellen Wald. She's the president of the energy consulting firm Transversal Consulting and joins us now from Jacksonville, Florida. Welcome back to the show, Ellen. Now, first of all, oil prices have risen at their fastest pace so far since the first half of 2009. Is this now enough to get OPEC and its allies to start ramping up production at a faster pace?
Well, I don't think it actually is, because the scenario that OPEC is actually discussing right now is a fairly slow increase in production. They're talking basically about increasing maybe about 400,000 barrels a day starting in August and continuing that through December, although we have to acknowledge that proposal has not yet been submitted to the ministerial group. It's still under discussion and may be for some time, so it's certainly not a sure thing at this point. I think OPEC has basically, they've acknowledged that what's happened is that demand has almost entirely returned, but not quite. There are still some areas of weakness. Jet fuel is one of those areas. And we've drawn down the stored oil that we put in place during the pandemic, but that still leaves us with quite a lot of stored oil because oil stocks were quite high to start with. And so I think OPEC is really looking to prevent a price slide as a result of these generally high inventories.
Okay, now world powers we know are negotiating that 2015 Iran nuclear deal that the previous US administration had stepped out of. If they do strike a deal, what does that mean for global oil supplies, and how much of a concern is that for OPEC and its allies?
This is a huge concern for OPEC and its allies because once those sanctions are lifted, Iran is going to want to basically get back its entire market share. And Iran is talking about being able to put between 700,000 and 1 million barrels of oil per day back on the market almost immediately, and then is hoping to grow that to about 2 million barrels a day, which is exactly the amount that OPEC is talking about bringing back to the market during the rest of this year. So, in fact, we're hearing that OPEC may condition its decision on the outcome of the Iran nuclear negotiations. So they're okay putting more oil back on the market, but if those negotiations result in the sanctions being removed, they may backtrack on that.
And then now Russia and other non-OPEC countries have essentially been coordinating very, very closely with OPEC since 2017. Is OPEC Plus the new face of OPEC?
It certainly seems that way at this point. Russia doesn't seem to really have that much inclination to pull away from the group after what happened last March. It seems pretty securely in the group, but also it does seem that Saudi Arabia in particular has kind of learned that in order to keep Russia involved, it's got to give Russia a bit of leeway. So sometimes Russia gets permission to basically produce a bit more at times, even when the rest of the group is still cutting. And it seems that degree of flexibility has helped maintain Russia's commitment to the overall group.
So let's bring it home then. What does all of this mean for consumers? Can we look forward to paying lower prices at any point in the near future, or not so much?
Well, we're really at a crossroads right now. It does seem that oil prices are poised to continue to rise, at least for another month. If you look at where hedge funds and banks have made their positions, they're all positioned to show oil prices rising. But that rise could quickly be thwarted, particularly after the summer, if demand starts to come back down.
All right. Thank you so much for your analysis on the show. As always, Ellen Wald there speaking to us from Jacksonville, Florida.